Welcome to the True Man Podcast. So if you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you know I believe in divine intervention. God is good, and it's amazing when you get your mind right and get in touch with the universe. And I'm sure today's guest agrees with that. So a while back, I received an email from out of the blue from this person who ran into the podcast online somehow, some way, and started his own community. You'll love this. It's called the True Man Journey. And we had the opportunity to talk and exchange ideas. And it's been, I think, the start of a nice friendship. So welcome to the podcast today, Luc Cardinal, a French Canadian who can say his name much cooler and smoother than I just did. He's an international speaker, a NeuroCoach who works with top team leaders to achieve higher individual and collective performances. And of course, as I've already mentioned, he's got to be cool because he's the creator of the True Man Journey. So great to have you on the show, Luc. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. It's great to be here with you.
So, Luc, of all the things you've been able to achieve in your career and do in your life, you saw a need to jump in and help men. Really hard question. Why?
Well, I think that if we're being honest with ourselves, the why starts in maybe the following way: is every time it's been difficult in my life, I found myself to be in my cave alone, trying to find my solutions, and only to realize that it was good. And I think I still need today to go in my cave on a regular basis. But for whatever reason, I would too often stay extended periods of time in my cave. And what I mean by that is I would be in public, I would be with people, I would be working, but I'd be closed up.
Yeah.
I would be hiding something. I would be standing tall as an image, but really feeling broken on the inside for whatever reason. And through my own inner work and hiring coaches and doing trainings and what have you, what I found at some point is that I had to, whatever I've learned, to share it with other men. And what really is a trigger for me also is to realize that, and if I take it to the bottom line of all of this, I find that men are really powerful when they say something and it's followed by coherent action. And that's all the way down to saying to your kid, "Hey, Johnny, yeah, sure, yeah, Daddy will be there for the baseball game," and then you're not there.
Right.
Yeah, hey, Mike, how are you? It's been nice talking to you. Let's talk again next week. And then I don't follow up on it.
Never follow up. Yeah.
So our words, to me, that sort of the metaphor that I use now is our words as men, generally speaking, in society today in 2022, fall out of our mouths like leaves in the fall. Like it goes to the ground and dies. So, and creating the True Men community and journey, one of my desires is to help men see what it costs them to not honor their word, but also be conscious of what they're saying so that they can truly honor their word. Oftentimes we'll say things, "Oh yeah, it's been too long. Let's get together again."
Yeah.
Why say that if you're not going to follow through with it? Well, about saying, I'd love to get with you again, but I'm really busy right now. Let me take a look, and within the next couple of weeks, I'll get back to you with maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I'll get back to you. And so that has an effect in the world, that has an effect on children especially, but where it has the most effect is on us. Because as a NeuroCoach, when I studied stress and what it does to our body and what it does to our heart and what it does to our brain, one thing that I realized, we all know about stress, the fight and flight syndrome.
Yeah.
And the fact that if you're walking on a path somewhere in the wood and there's a bear that stands in front of you, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, all the systems that come together for you to fight or to
run like hell.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. What we don't realize is if I say, "Mike, I'll write to you next week about our project," and I don't, to my brain, and that was such a discovery for me, to our brain, it is like a bear. a small bear, a small situation,
Yeah.
but 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times not being my word is a paradox into our system that in time creates the same effect as the fight and flight when you're in front of a bear. And that effect is the closing out of the top portion of the brain called the cortical inhibition and closing of the heart. Everything now is about survival. There's a tension in the system and you got to survive.
Yeah.
But you don't feel it because we've been going like this for like weeks, months, often years. And so we are without the top of our brain. Most of the time, we don't even know it. And the irony of it all is that that top of the brain is where our best self is, where the true man lives, embodied into our personality, embodied into our behaviors. But if that is closed up, our behavior always comes from the past. It's based on ego, personality, and you may dream of having a better version of yourself, but you'll never get there if you don't do that first thing, which is to take care of the fight and flight, take care of the stress level. And of course, it's hard to do if you're not informed about it. So it's all about consciousness, basically.
Wow. You just gave me so much to unpack there. I almost don't know where to begin, but I'll tell you one of the things that has really intrigued me. I'll say really over the last 5 or 6 months, as I've become more entrenched in the podcast and in my business, you bring up this really interesting topic area of what is the cost of not honoring your word. We actually did a podcast on this a little bit because it hit a nerve with me at a certain point. Because when we relocated, I was in contact with a number of contractors, a number of people about the house. And what I found on almost a consistent basis, and it bothered me, was that people were not honoring their word. They would say one thing and do another. And I'm just not like that. If I say I'm going to follow up on X, I do it. If we're on each other's calendars, I expect it to occur. And people would be surprised to find out how many times a podcast is scheduled and somebody doesn't show up.
Really?
So, and in my world, and I don't know if I'm closed off. So if I am, tell me. In my world, if you don't show up and I don't hear from you, like there was an emergency, I had to take care of something. If I don't hear from you, we're done. Because I feel like it's an integrity issue at that point. And so talk to me about what is the cost of not honoring your words?
Wow. The cost is visible in the mirror. When you look at yourself, are you the man you've been dreaming about being? And you can't absolutely not. I mean, you can't be when you look in the mirror and you can be proud of yourself and proud of, I said something and I delivered. And that doesn't mean that we don't stumble, that we don't make mistakes.
Right.
Because then that's another conversation about being too hard on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But the cost is huge because, well, let me give you another picture of that. How many times do I go to the grocery store and I see men sort of, leaning on the cart, and then the wife is picking up stuff. And then I see a man picking up something and then looking over to his wife, and then she says no, and he puts it back.
It does happen.
I think that's what happens. Eventually, you can't make a decision for yourself. And now, be careful. What I'm saying is, I mean, maybe there's something you're doing, and the noise says no, and you've already agreed on something.
Right.
Whatever. But that's not what I'm talking about. Is that feeling of a man being with his mom, but is his wife, A man, so my interpretation of that is that this man lost his power. So going back to the question, when you look in your mirror, can you say, I own my power? I give importance to what I say. If I have an appointment with someone, I will honor it. And if I don't, I will let them know that I won't, for whatever reason. Before or after, sometimes you can't do it before, you got to do it after for whatever reason. Most of the time before, of course, so that you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I'm being my word. I'm the man. I can be trusted. And, a study's been done. I think it's actually reported in The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey, which people were wondering, how do you measure trust in a company? And what he found out is that the more trust there is in a business, the cost of operation goes down and the speed goes up. Those are the two components. So look at your life. Does it take forever to get things done? Is there trust around you? Are you trustworthy? If you don't trust and that's the whole cost. Eventually, you can't even trust yourself. And that's huge, because it hurts in the heart when you can't trust yourself anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that book up. I was sitting here listening to your answer, and I just kind of glanced over to my bookshelf, and there's a book that I read years ago called Credibility, and I believe the authors are Kuzney, and I can't remember who the other guy is, but they did studies over a number of years, and the number one thing that always came back, what do you want in your leadership? Trust. Trust, 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 trust. And it's interesting that word comes up, that we're having this conversation about it, because it feels like culturally over the last couple of years, and I know we could trace a lot of it back to politics, because there's a lot of things that have happened that are political instigators that have occurred over the last couple of years. And I'm not picking a side in this fight, but what I'm saying is this: we're all struggling, I think, with what is trust, who to trust, when to trust, what the heck's going on. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in our culture right now. I mean, you brought up the grocery store. You go to the grocery store and there are bare areas on the shelves. Why? I'm dumbfounded by it. And, right. I had somebody ask me the other day, give me a couple of attributes of a true man. And of those two attributes I gave them, one of them was integrity, which is trust, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I'm worried about that right now. And I feel like there needs to be a men's movement of integrity.
Well, this is what it's about. True Men Community and Journey, the True Men podcast. I think you and I came in there more with questions and answers, of course. but as you start moving in and being with men and talking with men, some commonalities come out.
Oh yeah.
And one of them is, the saying, you can't really love others unless you love yourself. Well, I think it would be the same thing with trust. You can't trust others. You can't bring trust into your business, into your circle of friends, into your neighborhood, unless you trust yourself. So what is trusting yourself? And what I found too is a lot of men will make promises. They oftentimes they won't follow up on their promises, as we were talking about being. But oftentimes they will have more discipline to do things for others than they would for themselves. And if that's the case, then, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym, then you don't. Oh yeah, I'm going to do X and Y, and then you don't. Oh yeah, I'm going to buy myself this, and then you don't. Oh no, I'm not going to buy this case of this or this case of that, and you do. Oh no, I'm not going to do that, and then you do. Well, in time, you stop trusting yourself. And you don't even realize it because you're sort of an automation. And you're on automation because the top of the brain is cut off. We go back to that same thing again. So I think there needs to be an awareness for men to realize that they can't be a true man if they can't be truly themselves, and they can't truly be themselves unless they know themselves. And to know oneself is to take a step back and have a look and be with other men and ask questions and be confronted with what other men will say to you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Listen, that's what I was going to ask you, what can a man do to know himself? And what would you, as a starting point for a man that might be listening right now, and they know they need to take action on something, what would you say to them in order to get to know themselves?
First, I think first of all is to sort of open them up to have conversation with a man.
Yeah.
Is realize a fundamental principle. What seems to be really personal is actually universal. I'll repeat that. This thing that you're ashamed of, you think that you're the only one with, every man has it.
Yeah.
This thing you wonder, you may be the only man that feels that way. Every man feels that way. What feels the most personal is the most universal. So a first good step is the next time you find yourself stuck in some way, and then hearing the conversation that's probably less than favorable for yourself inside your own skull, inside your own brain.
Yeah.
It feels really personal. Hear my voice say, stop. It's not personal. It's universal. Talk to another man. Open up. And if you do, you'll realize one thing that Deepak Chopra was saying years ago: the door to intimacy, and I'm not talking about sex here, being intimate, being truly in relationship with one another, the door to that is vulnerability. But it helps, in order to be vulnerable, to realize that it feels so damning, I have so much remorse, or I feel so much shame or guilt, is to realize that it's universal. You'll talk to other men and they'll go, oh man, do I know what you're talking about? Thanks for saying it. It sort of frees me just hearing you, because I have been thinking I was the only one. You'll hear that.
Oh yeah, all the time. I've said it myself. And it is, to your point, I would say it's a weight lifted off your shoulders when you're in a room and, you're with a group of men and those conversations are happening at more than an inch deep level.
Yes.
I have to premise that because it requires going a little deep, but it's refreshing, and, I think even during the pandemic, I haven't had as much of that, as I would like. And just being involved in a move and relocating to a different city, I'm not in those intimate groups like I used to be on a weekly basis. And I do miss that conversation. It becomes a habit and a way of living once you begin to move that direction. And so, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here. So there are guys out there, they're searching. They may be hearing this right now and going, oh yeah, well, that does sound good. That does make sense to me, but like, where can I go to find my tribe? And I think this is one reason why a lot of guys don't take action. They don't know where to go find their tribe.
Yeah, it's funny because I launched a True Man community and journey this year, actually, in the beginning of 2022. And I remember one of the men writing in the in the group at some point, oh man, that's a nice change from drumming and from being around a fire. It's about real communication between men. So I think there's a real truth to that. And the True Man community, which I founded in 2022, is there for that. There's a website, and there's a new journey that's starting in September. And God knows how, when people hear that, they may be wondering, well, the True Man podcast, that's by Mike, and then Luke's got the community, the journey.
They're confused right now.
Yeah, right. Well, I think you were actually at the beginning talking about that. We both came out with True Man something and found one in the web, and now we're together to see how can we combine energies and make it possible for men to find their tribe. And by the way, finding a tribe, the tribe that is your tribe now may not be your tribe forever. It's not like a lifetime, like to blood. That's not what it's about.
Right.
It's about what kind of support, what kind of an environment is going to help you take the next step. And once you've taken that step, maybe you move on to something else, or maybe you find that there's more steps to be taken within that community, because ultimately no man can tell another man what's the next step, what is the right journey. We can just propose, suggest things, but the whole idea of a true man is, I don't know how many men there is on the planet, probably like 3 billion, maybe more than that. Well, that means that once you find yourself, there are, and each man finding themselves, there's at least 3 billion true men, and they're all different. It's not a one-fit-all definition. But are you honoring your heart? Are you being the man that you've been dreaming about? Are you being your word? When children look at you and you say something, they really trust it. Are you bringing trust in your environment because you're being in integrity with yourself? And when you stumble and make a mistake, like at the Oscar this year, I know when Will Smith was really angry with Chris Rock, and he went and he did something with him, you may remember. Well, the next day he actually posted his apologies, saying that there's no room for violence anywhere in the world, and he was sorry for what he had done. And he was sorry for the public, sorry with Chris Rock. That's being vulnerable, all right. That's being a true man, all right. I have even more respect for Will Smith now because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because my reaction is I wish he hadn't reacted in that way, because I think one of the battles, that we wage when we talk about, being a true man and being, masculine and that type of thing, is the first thing that pops into people's mind is, a rough, tough guy, a bodybuilder, a football player, something like that. And so, well, it's important to apologize. I think the challenge up front for each and every one of us, and I've had a temper and had, angry, had to battle anger really my entire life. The battle is not to do what he did in the first place, handle it differently. Mm-hmm. And I think
agree with you, but there's a danger and that's why I'm mentioning this incident, because he came back after and said he was sorry and he apologized. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm saying that is that if we have this image of what a true man is, a true man won't have those kinds of reactions and so on and so forth. I agree with you. Ultimately, maybe that's it. But there's the risk of falling into a mental image of what it's like to be in your heart and be a true man.
Oh, yeah.
While doing that, I'm good. I don't get into anger anymore, and it's freaking boiling inside of you. That's not good. You have to find an outlet for that anger. Yes, maybe you have to find a positive outlet. Maybe you have to find a way to really use that energy in a better way than through violence. But you still have to deal with it, because again, the danger is our brain, as men, our reasoning is going to take all of this information and make it into a new rule. I can't be angry anymore. I got to find other ways to let my anger out. Well, attention here. Sometimes you just can't. I mean, there's accumulation. You got to let it out, and if you do, then yeah, you got to honor what's happened and clean it up.
To your point, and I and I agree, I couldn't agree more. To your point, if Will Smith doesn't go to the stage, but he's just dropping, F-bombs and all the stuff that he was doing, I would have been okay with that. Okay. I mean, I think Chris Rock told a joke. Maybe he didn't know about, Will Smith's wife's a problem, or forgot about, the fact that, she's got, a hair problem, and she had this green dress on, right? So he's calling her G.I. Jane. It was a little distasteful. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe it wasn't right. We could go into, probably lengthy debate on it, but I would have had no problem with him just defending his wife. It was just the violence of it.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
that brings up a whole other thing that I feel like's going on in our culture right now, is that we're acting out more and more. And now we're seeing this on television all the time. I mean, this just wasn't Will Smith. I mean, you could flip the news on any night and we're seeing, because cameras are everywhere. So if you want to act out, just be prepared.
I think there's more acting out because there's been a lot of acting in. Not enough acting in. Truly, not enough acting out. Now, neither is good, but we just didn't learn. We didn't learn. We don't know how to deal with anger in a way that feels good. And it may sound funny to hear dealing with anger in a way that feels good. That may sound funny, but anger, we made it a negative emotion, but it's a very, very powerful emotion when it's used properly, with awareness, with consciousness.
It's very true. Is this an area where you've worked with men on anger? Because this comes up all the time.
It does. The one thing that we know about anger is that women can talk about anger and feel better. If men talk about anger, they feel worse.
It's true. It's very true.
Because we need to act it out. It's testosterone, and if it's available in the bloodstream, but it doesn't find our muscles, we go crazy. We feel antsy, like we need to do something. We need to move. So, and that's hormonal. The bottom line is hormonal here. We don't control hormones. They just take over when there's anger. So we need to find a way to act it out physically in a positive way. So you're angry about something, go to the gym. You'll have the most amazing workout. But it's all about consciousness again. Knowing what you're doing. I'm full of anger. Am I angry? No. There is anger in me. I got to deal with it. The I does no longer reside inside the anger. It's not taken over your behavior, but you have not said to yourself, no, I shouldn't be angry. That's the same program. Oh, I shouldn't be angry, or acting out is the same program. Now, if we take it a notch higher in terms of consciousness, like, oh, there is anger in my system because I was triggered by such and such. I got to find a way to deal with this. Like, you're still in control. You see what's going on, and you're informed enough. You have a toolkit. You know what to do with it. One thing you can do with anger is through breathing exercises, and that I know that's foreign to a lot of men, but even though it's foreign and it sounds out there, I mean, you got to breathe, right?
Yeah.
So breathe in a conscious way where you breathe in the anger. Imagine this now, like you've got lots of anger. You imagine a reservoir full of anger and you breathe it in. And as you breathe out, you send it towards your vision. You're actually fueling your vision. Take away the negative component, take away the negative label. See anger as just energy. Anger, sadness, joy, it's just energy, right? Take away the label. So you've got this reservoir of energy, you breathe into it, and then you breathe out into your vision. Your vision is going to happen faster. And your vision may be to have a better handle on anger. So it's like you're circling the anger in a way that gives you more power, because what men have lost is the feeling that they are the creator of their reality. All of us say, oh yeah, I created the company, I created this podcast, I created this, it's all my creation. And when the shit hits the fan, oh, circumstances, people, him, her, it's out there and it's life. Oh, so you were there for the good stuff, but the bad stuff, you're not responsible. You created it all. You just don't know how. That's the power I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's
man has a handle, maybe not 100% of the time, but working on having more and more consciousness, being more and more aware of where his power lies, so that it's got an internal locus as opposed to an external locus.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, I will say this, and we should probably talk about this. And I love the idea of pointing the anger towards the vision. Now, what do we do if we don't know what our vision is? Because I get this a lot of times too, right? Like, I'm unclear what my purpose is, what my vision is, what I want to do. I mean, I see it all, I hear it all the time. How can we develop a better vision or a purpose? Like, where do we start, Luc?
Yeah. Well, we don't start from where we're sitting.
That's true.
Really. Yeah, it's a projection of our present situation into the future. Let me tell you a story about Indian Americans. One thing that they already knew. And when I heard that story the first time, I thought, oh my God, have we lost this one or what? Like, there's no room for what I'm about to talk about in the world right now, especially in the North Hemisphere. And that's the following. So what did Indian Americans know? A young man in his 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s, depending on age, there are visions that want to come into our life. What is next? What wants to emerge into our life? There's no room for that now, because if you could go to see a friend and you say, I don't know what I want to do with the years coming, and then, come on, man, you're good at this, you're good at that, you could be doing this. Like, we're in solution mode already. Indian Americans would do the following. A man would come to the tribe and say, I don't have a vision anymore. I said, oh. And then they look at one another, looked at him. Oh, you don't know what to do for the future, right? When did that start? And then they start asking questions to eventually get to the following understanding. This young man, this older man, this elder is in a vision quest. And the first thing they would do is to tell the man, you're free of all your responsibilities to the tribe. Your only responsibility now is to make yourself available for your emerging vision. Go fishing, go hunting. You want to bring more to the tribe? Go ahead, but you just want to bring one fish for yourself? That's great. We're not looking for you to produce anything, to bring anything, to do anything, but to make yourself available for the vision for when it comes. So what are they saying? You got to create space in you for the vision to become clear. But who's got time for that, right? So that's the irony of it all, because now we want to push ourselves into the vision. And in their words, vision is like the great spirit that comes to visit.
Mm-hmm.
Think of an eagle, you know, a white, what was the eagle in the really known? It's on the money and the bald.
It's the American bald eagle. Yep.
Right, exactly. Why is it there? That's the symbol of vision. So you want you don't wait for the bird to come. You want to shoot him down so you can have a look inside and see your vision. That's what we're doing practically now to men who are in a vision quest. Come on, man, you got to know you've done this, you've done that, you're good at this, you're good at that.
Right.
How about this? How about that? Go see somebody to help you. How about just relaxing, trusting, go back to trust again, trusting life, trusting that you have the information to calm your mind down, which is vision is going to emerge. You can't push it, pull it. It's going to come. Just make yourself available. Work out, do some gardening, do whatever you love that makes you present here and now. And lo and behold, one day you'll get up and bam, you'll know what wants to emerge through you, as you. It's going to come.
It's and it requires a tremendous amount of patience and time. And it's interesting that it's such a good story, because I even find myself in a different place as an entrepreneur now versus 4 or 5 years ago when I tried to do my own thing, because I'm prepared to be patient, and I'm continuing to work on the vision and the mission all the time, but I don't put a tremendous amount of pressure on myself to have it completed by, a certain date or whatever. Yeah, I have goals, but
Mike, tell the story of the True Man podcast, how it came to you. That's
yeah, I mean,
you were in your head trying to push something out, trying to, I should do that, and it just came to you. So you did something. Think for a second. What did you do to create that space inside of you?
well, it's interesting because, I've told the story before. The True Man podcast was the True Man, men's small group. The name is basically, in reference to Jesus Christ walk on earth as a true man. And really our goal with the small group was to, walk more like Jesus Christ on earth. And so, when we decided, hey, yeah, let's do a podcast, I couldn't get away from that name because it resonated with me. Everything it stood for resonated with me. And ultimately, what is, rolling out of this is, other brands. I'm in the process of, writing a book that, will be heavily weighted towards how do we become a true man. And really everything that I'm doing now begins to point that direction. But I do from time to time get people, when we're having intimate business discussions, they try to pull out of me things that might not already be there, that I'm working through. And I actually find, and I don't know if you've experienced this, Luc, and it's kind of an interesting feeling. Sometimes when people pull too hard, I get really aggravated because I think to myself, I know it's there. I know the answer's coming, but you're pulling on me a little hard right now. And I'm not ready for that yet. It's going to come, it's going to be there, but now you're aggravating me. Like you're trying to push me over the cliff in order to get the answer. Like, we got to have the answer now, and I'm finding the longer I'm involved in this, that, you don't have to have all the answers now or right away. If you show up every day, if you do the work, if you do what's necessary, and you're, I always say, grinding away to some degree, things will come to you as long as you're curious and as long as you're asking yourself really, really good questions. And
I was going
curious.
to say, we're all looking for answers, but it's a nice change of pace to stay with a powerful question for a little while.
Yeah.
And not rush. But I agree with what you're saying. It's like we're rushing into everything. And so if there's one thing that I would hope man would come out of this podcast with is, are there places in my life where I need to create more space? Do I need to slow down?
Oh, yeah.
I keep saying, slow down. It'll go faster.
It's critical.
Yeah.
everything in the world is set up this way. I often say this to my wife, we'll be watching a television show, something like America's Got Talent or something like that. And what always fascinates me, or one of these singing shows, almost like clockwork, the people that go to the top of the stack are like the children or the young teenagers or whatever. And yeah, some of these people are extremely talented, but like once you become famous, once your face is on television, your life is dramatically changed. And it feels like there's such a push to have young people become adults way faster than they need to. My daughter's extremely talented, and I've had people say to me, do you want me to contact somebody in New York? I'm like, no, I want my daughter to be a kid. If she's 19 or 20 and she gets a big break, fine. She's in high school. Let her be a kid. And, so that is a aspect of what we're talking about here. I feel like there's such a rush, such this fast food environment, like, oh, I got to get there now. If we could flip on a business channel right now, and they'd probably be talking about earnings calls for, an organization. They got to make money. They got to make money now. It's all quarter to quarter driven, and the personalities, people have completely been removed from corporate America because it's all about
to what we were talking about before. No vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you come from vision, there's not such a hurry because your timing is right. And serendipity kicks in. Like the universe is there to support your every move. So everything becomes easier. So we became violent with life.
That is I've never heard anybody describe it that way, but it kind of feels like that. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a call for us to be part of life again, reconnect. And that starts to, with, are you in the fight or flight mode now? What are you doing to reconnect the top of your brain, reconnect your heart? That's your part in reconnecting to life. And now maybe this is another podcast, but we know that we do influence the electromagnetic field of the planet. And it influences us. That's another whole conversation.
Yeah.
I'm a heart math certified coach. I was on a global coherence initiative seminar last weekend, and it's mind-boggling to see what's going on, all the research that actually demonstrates scientifically how we influence one another through the electromagnetic field of the earth. So we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, well, we do need to talk. We do need to talk about that, though. That is, heart math is something that I do want to spend some time on at a certain point. That's something that I've been exploring for probably 3 or 4 years now. It's something I'd like to go deeper on because that connection between the heart and mind is just absolutely huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can talk about that. I don't know what's your policy about guests, but I know I'd love to come back to your podcast at some point, because it feels to me like we just started scratching the surface a little bit on everything.
We could be on here.
We've got a meeting in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we could be on here all day, but we probably do need to wrap up. But certainly, Luc, you got an open invitation because we got this True Man connection going, and it's pretty awesome. So before we go, tell me, how can our guests get a hold of you to learn more about the True Man journey and what you're doing?
Well, certainly they can look at the link that you've put right underneath the video, and they'll come to a sales page, which actually gives them all the information that they need if they want to join the community in the journey. Also, I'll put a link, since we're here together, that I'll give you, and then you'll be now that they're seeing this, they'll see that link also underneath, where they can take an appointment to talk about the True Man community and journey, to talk with you about the True Man podcast and whatever we'll be creating, because who knows? I mean, this is the first of something, but we know we'll be actively working together on something, because we want the same thing, is support men to become the true man that they.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Luke, you can send me the link. We'll put it in the show notes and make it available for everybody. And we'll make that easy on them. We'll just put it in the show notes. So
Perfect.
Well, awesome, Luke. Yeah, you got an open invitation. We'll have you back. We'll keep going. There's just so much to talk about when you're talking about, really what we're both after, and that's helping men be true men. So, Luke, really appreciate having you on the show today, and best of luck in everything you're doing. And I can't wait to work with you and see where the spirit takes us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike, for having me. And this is the first, but certainly not the last.
Not the last. There you go. There it is.
See you,
Awesome.
man.
Thanks, Luke. Bye-bye.